John Deal is joining us, and then he's got to leave to go to the airport, so we appreciate him spending some extra time with us this morning. He's via Skype. Jane Duker's here, and Tony Messenger from the editorial page. Tony, what is going on with poor Moose, the horse-drawn carriage? Boy, they're picking on him this week.
Moose the horse, of course. This is the new social media world. If you haven't yet followed at Moose the horse on Twitter, you need to, because
I have been. How crazy
at Moose
is
the
that?
horse has his own voice about what happened here. But it's
a horse, of course.
You've probably paid attention to this. There was a horse-drawn carriage with a horse named Moose, big horse, who was pulling his carriage the other night on a hot night on Washington Avenue, and Pam Walker, who's the city's health director, was out walking her dog, saw the horse struggling to breathe, and stepped in and stopped the horse carriage and banned people from getting on it and created a whole brouhaha. And it's interesting in that, if she believes, and I believe that she believes that the horse was in distress, and a lot of people, there's a video, a lot of people believe that the horse was in distress. I'm not a vet. I'm not in any position to make a judgment. But if she believes the horse was in distress, good for her for trying to protect the horse. But then she went from trying to protect the horse all the way to let's ban horse carriages downtown, and I'm the health director, and this is what we're going to do. And what it did is it shone a light on the fact that we have this interesting situation in that horse carriages downtown used to be monitored by the Taxi Cab Commission, which, of course, we talked about a few weeks ago related to Lyft and Uber and all of that. And now there is some question as to who actually regulates them. We wrote an editorial in today's Post-Dispatch that basically says, look, let's not be in the business of, John Deal's going to agree with me, I guarantee it, of the city health department going out and deciding to just ban businesses on a lark. But if there are legitimate health concerns about horses pulling carriages downtown, and whether or not they should be operating when the heat is such and such, and whether or not they should be operating for so many hours, and do the horses get proper vacation and maternity leave, and that was a joke, all of those sorts of things,
because of course they do.
Then
probably better than I do, right?
Let's make sure that the horse's health is taken care of. If we need some regulations in the city that don't exist, if we need to clarify that the health director has some authority there, let's do that. But let's not go from 0 to 60 and just start banning businesses that in a city, by the way, that's really well known for Clydesdales pulling wagons.
John Deal, what are your thoughts?
Well, a couple weeks ago, we talked about, Uber and Lyft, and, that was kind of cutting edge transportation technology. I look at this story and I laugh. These are horse-drawn carriages. This technology has been around for, I think, about 200 years.
Oh, I'd say longer than that.
And I know, what, I don't know if this is a victim of global warming or not, but I'll bet you during some time in those past 200 years, horses have gotten hot and they've needed water, and you have to manage their workloads and everything else. I just think it's just sad, and it's indicative of how government thinks they need to come in, and there's one problem that somebody observes that is or is not a problem. I'm not calling into question her judgment on this particular day because I wasn't there. But that doesn't mean that because of one anecdotal thing that happens, you need to come in and try to set up an entire regulatory scheme on an industry that I don't think there have been a lot of complaints or issues on with this. And so, let's I think everybody needs to take a deep breath. I think that's part of the charm, or part of why people come downtown. Virtually every major city has this type of industry and this type of business. And we ought to just use common sense and take a deep breath about it.
What's interesting to me is Mayor Slay has he said anything about this?
I don't know that he has, but he's clearly on the he's closer to the animal activist side than he is the other side. Although
but he hasn't said anything.
He hasn't said anything. My guess is Mayor Slay had something to do with his city's health director going from all the way up here to let's ban these things, to backing down a little bit and saying, well, let's figure out what some fair regulations are.
Okay, so Mayor Slay hasn't said anything. Has Mayor Rainford said anything about this? My question is,
Mayor Callow?
The horse supposedly had COPD, right?
But then the vet said no.
Right, the vet who did a real examination said no. Mm-hmm. She also said the horse must have 5 weeks vacation. We had the owner of the horse on yesterday. The horse takes off in the cold months, so for like 3 or 4 or 5 months, the horse doesn't work. So it seems like the regulations they want to impose on this horse are not as stringent as what the owner puts the horse through.
Well, yeah, and I get. I mean, we never want to overreact in these situations, and I think John's analogy on Lyft and Uber is sort of
it's spot on.
Actually, let's be clear. It was the Post-Dispatch editorial page analogy. John's just agreeing with the Post-Dispatch editorial page, as he frequently does.
Wow.
As he frequently
Ladies. So anyway,
that's why I'm going to get off early before we can disagree.
Right, exactly. But I also think that I've always found Pam Walker to be level-headed, and maybe if there was a tad overreaction here, I agree. We step back, we take a deep breath. But I also think that this is something. I mean, people will freak out if you have a horse, and going down Broadway and the horse collapses. I mean, that's not good either.
But you shouldn't have a public
bad for business.
a public health director just arbitrarily deciding that a business should cease to exist. That's not good government at all.
Well, no, and I think you have to remember too. I mean, she comes from a position of she's part of animal health and public health, and it really is the mayor's job to say, okay, this is what's going to happen. She's gonna try this, and the mayor needs to get up and say, okay, this is what we're going to do here. And I hopefully he's waiting for all the evidence to come in.
But by one sentence, she wanted to just decide, according to her, in an appointed position, that one business should cease to exist because she thinks the horse is being worked too hard.
Well, but that's not legal. So
But she shouldn't be saying those things.
So but and I'm not saying maybe there was an overreaction. Again, can we all look at sort of the evidence and say, okay, what is the problem here? Is there a problem? And if there's a problem, what's a rational, least restrictive solution? I mean, it isn't rocket science. I mean, this is sort of how government's supposed to work.
The only people who are allowed to give somebody a ride to the airport are taxi cabs.
Well, that's the way it is now.
Taxi cabs licensed by the taxi cab.
Correct.
How long would it take a horse-drawn carriage to get you to the airport? I think that's an important question.
Especially if they had to take a 5-day vacation every
But
hour.
here's the important thing that nobody's talking about. And this is great for my business. If horse-drawn carriages can make a comeback, watch out, print newspaper business. We're back, baby.
Wow.
We're back.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Post-Dispatch hosts horse-drawn carriage.
I know when to leave a segment. John
Well done.
John Deal, fly safe, and we'll see you next week here in studio.
Well done. Bye, John.
That's Tony Messenger, editorial page editor of the new and improved local newspaper, which will be making a huge comeback on your doorstep every morning. And then attorney in town and former chief of staff to Governor Holden and all-around gadfly Jane Duker. Back in a moment. The board meeting continues.